As you can see, the title of this talk is What's Coming in Java E8. My name is Reza Rahman. I am the Java evangelist at Oracle Corporation. Up there is my email address and Twitter handle. Please do feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions on this presentation, or in fact, just about anything else on Java EE. As you can sort of guess from the title of this talk, one of the goals of this talk is to inform you. Is to let you know what is it that we're working on in Java E8. However, in fact, believe it or not, that is not the primary goal why I'm standing here today. The primary goal of why I'm standing here today is actually that you will help determine for us exactly what is coming in Java E8. So one of my goals is to engage you in this process and help so that you can tell us what is it that you want. And believe it or not, that is a big part of this presentation. I need to show you this disclaimer real quick. It's fairly simplistic. Basically, all that it is saying is that anything that I can tell you may change in the future. Our legal department forces us to show you this presentation for anything that is forward-looking. This is how I intend to spend the next 60 minutes of us together. First, I'll be talking a little bit about Java E7, not too much. I hope no more than 5 to 10 minutes. A majority of this presentation is actually going to be about where it is that we are going. And as I said, you are a big part of that journey. And then finally, I'll spend a little bit of time, and as I said, this is perhaps the most important part of this presentation, is how is it that you, as the end developer, the person that has the most to gain or lose from Java E8, how is it that you can get involved in this process? Okay, these are the principal themes of Java E7. I think most of you probably are familiar with this already. These are principally HTML5 alignment. We're very glad to see the HTML5 ecosystem and generally web standards finally moving forward. We want to make sure that you, as a server-side Java developer, are enabled as much as possible to make use of those changes. A whole bunch of changes in Java E7 actually are in this family. And of course, developer productivity. We always want to make sure that Java EE is as simple as possible to develop with. We always want to keep a laser focus on every single part of the platform to make sure we get as much boilerplate out as possible. And we did spend a little bit of time doing that in Java E7. Believe it or not, there isn't a whole lot of places where we can do that. We're sort of running out of places where we can even remove sort of the boilerplate code. And finally, meeting enterprise demands. This is a pretty obvious one. Java EE, at the end of the day, is an enterprise platform. And we want to make sure that enterprise developers have everything that they need to be successful with the Java EE platform. This is a bit of a high-level look at what is in Java E7. Again, I hope most of this is also a review for you, and you've seen this sort of diagram before. As you can see, it's color-coded, generally 3 distinct classes of things that have been done here. A few new APIs that were added, so things like concurrency utilities, batch applications that basically lets you treat your application server as a batch platform, not just a fancy web server. Java API for JSON to do JSON processing right in the platform. You don't have to add additional libraries to do anything. It's just there for you to use. And then finally, the Java API for WebSocket, this being one of those new shiny things that were added in HTML5 that we want to help you enable. And a few APIs that have gone through major revisions. So these are JAX-RS 2.0. A majority of the changes in JAX-RS 2.0, again, align with those sort of changes in the web standards ecosystem, in the HTML5 ecosystem. We want to make sure that you're enabled to take advantage of all of those changes. EL3 was long overdue. It needed a little bit more power behind it, and so we can use EL actually in the rest of our platform APIs. So that went through a major revision. And then finally, JMS 2.0. This is probably the poster child for reducing boilerplate, removing more and more boilerplate and making the platform more productive. This is a prime example of that. The other big thing to note is the fact that almost every other API, in the Java EE platform has gone through at least a major update. And in fact, each of those updates are important to each of their respective users. Taken together, Java E7 is very easily one of the largest set of platform changes that you've ever seen in the history of Java. If you haven't seen it before, please start taking a look at that. And of course, the ecosystem. We're very happy to see the ecosystem strengthening further and further. And in fact, the ecosystem portion is part of what we're looking to strengthen in terms of building more of a community around helping even define what Java EE is. We'll talk more about that throughout the presentation. So far, the industry adoption of Java EE7 is pretty good. We have some successful early adoption stories. We have shared a few of those in Java 1 2014. We'll actually share quite a few more of those in Java 1 2015. So if you can't be at Java 1, stay tuned, and you'll be able to see who exactly is adopting Java EE7. In terms of implementations, you have quite a few options already. So you had GlassFish and Wildfly for quite a while. Those have been available pretty much from day one of Java EE7 release. There's a couple of others that were options as well, Hitachi being a newer one, Tmax of Jupes and Hitachi Code Cosme Nexus. And finally, hopefully for some of you, this is big news. In the next coming weeks, you'll see a fully Java EE7 compatible version of IBM WebSphere. Okay, and that's going to be the WebSphere Liberty profile supporting both the web profile as well as a full profile, and of course Java EE6. And there are others in the works. So we've already added some Java EE7 API support in WebLogic. We did that in Java 1 2014 timeframe. This year, by an end of this year, and perhaps hopefully even earlier, hint, hint, we are actually also looking to make WebLogic fully Java EE7 certified. Same story with JBoss EAP. That generally you can expect probably a commercial version of JBoss EAP with full Java EE7 support sometime end of this year. TomEE folks, I'm very happy to report, have also started working on their Java EE7 release. In fact, I saw tweets from them telling us, hey, we're going to do a beta release of TomEE 2.0 that supports all of the Java EE7 APIs. So even implementation-wise, things are looking good. Things are going to look really, really good. This diagram is going to look honestly fantastic in about 3 to 6 months. So I'm very, very happy about that. Okay. So here we go. That's Java EE7. Water under the bridge. We're done. We started working on it. In fact, we started working on Java EE8 literally a week after we shipped Java EE7. And how did we do that? I'll tell you a little bit of history on how we've traditionally done it. So after we ship a Java EE7 release, we have an internal architecture group, pretty much consisting of the people that you would suspect, the specification leads for Java EE APIs. And what we do is we sort of have an internal meeting or set of meetings to figure out, okay, we've done this version of Java EE7 or Java EE6. Now what is it that we want to work on? What is it that we think is left? What is it that we think the users will need in, say, a 2 or 3 year time horizon? So we did that process. And as a result of this process, what we usually do is, okay, once we've determined that roadmap, we share that roadmap with some of our key independents, so people like Adam Bean, let's say, as well as some of our partners, so our key partners being IBM and Red Hat. This time, what we did was we wanted all of you to be as part of that process. And why have we done that? The reason we have done that is because we have very, very ambitious plans about Java EE8. We want to make sure Java EE8 is history-making. How is it history-making? We want to make sure it is the most community-driven platform ever created. Okay, we want to make sure, we want to see hundreds and thousands of developer inputs, thousands of developers working on the platform, telling us what is it that they want, how should these APIs look like. Okay, at the end of the day, we want to create a version of Java EE that we are all proud of, and as I said, thousands of developers worldwide have a stake, have had a say in what Java EE8 really was, and that is the reason we opened up this process to everyone, even in the initial roadmap stages of determining, okay, how does the initial plan for Java EE8 look like? So how did we do that? Well, the way we did that, we took all of that input from our architects to determine, okay, these are the things we want to work on, and we put those items on a public survey. And in addition to that, just choices of yes, no, yeah, this looks good, this doesn't look good. We also provided free-form comments. Okay, so for each of those items, you could tell us, this is what I think of this. In addition to that, there was a free-form text altogether unrelated to any of the items that said, okay, did we miss something? If we missed something, tell us what it is that we missed. What is it that you think we should be working on? And we kept the survey open for about 3 months. And we got very very good input. About 4,500 input points all over the world, all sorts of different companies. We know this because we did domain analysis of the IP addresses that were giving us feedback. These surveys are otherwise anonymous. And this is the end result of the survey. We published the result of the survey out to the community to say, hey, this is what you told us. So this graphic up here is a representation of the things that people thought were important. And we'll take a look at each of these items in the subsequent slides in our presentation. However, if you haven't taken part in that survey, you today can take a look at, well, what is it that was in the survey? What is it that people said? And the way you do that is that you follow these 2 links. Okay, the full results of the survey are there for you. You should take a look at it, because at the end of the day, maybe you will learn something about what your fellow developers, a fairly representative, statistically significant set of server-side Java developers, think about the future and think about today. Right. So largely based on that survey input, this is what the initial roadmap for Java 8 today looks like. And by the way, the survey is just the beginning. Okay, I'll tell you at the end of this presentation, what is it that you, as a developer, can still do to help us determine the direction for Java 8. It's still very much open, and it always has been. And now there's newer avenues of how you can help get involved. So these are, of course, the major themes are going to be, one of them is going to be continued alignment with the web standards. Again, the web standards are moving forward. We want to make sure you are empowered to make use of all of them. The big one here is, very easily the biggest one is HTTP 2.0. I'll talk about that in just a second. But there are other interesting stuff as well. Things like SSE, or server-side events. If you haven't heard of this before, I'll cover it in greater detail in a second. JSON B and JSON P. I'll talk more about this as well. It's basically ways of robustly processing JSON in the platform very easily. You can take JSON for granted. You can think of it as just another Java serialization format when you're in a Java EE environment. You don't even have to worry about it being a sort of a foreign format for you. A new action-oriented framework that we're thinking of, that we're working on, and I'll share with you what the motivation for that is and what all that is all about. More support for hypermedia. Some of you may or may not have heard this buzzword, but we've already added some support for hypermedia in Java 7. We're looking to beef up those capabilities in Java 8. Again, this has to do with aligning ourselves with what is going on in the web standard space. Some things that, for better or for worse, is put under the cloud bucket. Okay, actually, these features are useful whether or not you're on the cloud or not. So these are things like simple security providers and a new, actually an updated, revamped JSR for REST-based management and monitoring. I'll talk about that in just a second as well. CDI alignment is a big one, where this is sort of our new themes, perpetual theme, it seems. So we now have, historically, we've had all these programming models. So we have the JSF management programming model, we have the EJB programming model, servlets are sort of their own components. So what we have been trying to do more and more is, as time progresses, we're going to converge toward just one programming model, and that programming model is going to be CDI. The big the big thing that I'm excited about in Java 8 is CDI 2.0. I'll talk more about that in just a second, but a whole set of changes to move CDI as far as possible to the cutting edge of what is possible in dependency injection. Making more of the EJB style services available outside of EJB. Again, eventually this helps us reduce one of the component models, streamline the platform even more. Hand in hand with that is getting rid of some of the older EJB stuff. We've already removed some of the old EJB2 stuff. We're looking to remove even more of that as of Java 8. And of course, our mainstay, enterprise stuff. Right? So these are things like JCache, some configuration work that we're looking to do in Java 8 at the platform level, a new revision of JMS, which I'll talk to you about in just a second. The only thing that I won't cover in great detail of these is JCache, so I'll talk about it a bit now. JCache, hopefully all of you know what this is. It's basically a standard for caching in Java applications. This is the longest running, quote unquote, the longest running JSR in JCP history. We actually wanted to include JCache in Java E7. We couldn't do that because the JCache JSR missed a few deadlines, so we had to hold up the entire platform just for one JSR. So that's why we said, you know what, let's forget this, we'll add JCache later, let's ship Java E7 now. And of course, by now, there's already a JCache standard out. It's been JCache 1.0 was standardized. And I believe actually somebody in this conference is talking about JCache 1.0 with EHCache, so feel free to take a look at that. So in the list, we will definitely include that version, JCache 1.0, in the Java 8 platform. Okay, that's obvious. What we're also maybe looking to do is maybe doing a point release of JCache to make it even easier to work with in Java EE in a Java EE application environment. And of course, Java SE 8 alignment. I'll talk more about this in a second as well. Okay, now here's the downer and the upper. As you can see, if Java EE 7 was a big release, well, Java EE 8 is going to also be a pretty big release. Okay, quite a few features in here. In fact, I expect that I won't be able to cover all of these things for you today. All right? That's the bad news. Here's the good news. You can actually find these things out yourself. Let me show you how. So I will more than likely need to skip some of the slides that I have here. In fact, the slides that you're looking at now is a truncated version of this presentation on SlideShare. Okay? This is a URL for it, slideshare.net reza_rahman/Java E8. Very easy to remember. This URL has a full slide deck, okay, full version, extended version of the slide deck, more than what I'm even trying to present here today, and probably won't be able to present. You can actually download these slide decks in PowerPoint format, and in this slide deck, I've actually added speaker notes. Okay, so for each of the slides, you can actually see, okay, this is the thing that I was going to talk about. And why am I doing this? The reason I'm doing this is actually, again, goes back to making Java EE more and more community friendly. So if you wanted to, today you can attend this talk. You'll get a basic idea of what I'm going to talk about in Java EE 8. You can go download that PowerPoint presentation, take a look at the speaker notes, and give this presentation yourself, okay? To your Java group, to your company, to your group of friends. And this is a way for you to help get involved in the Java 8 process. If you need my help, I will help you with it. Just shoot me an email and say, hey, I want to do this presentation. Can you help me prepare? And I will help you prepare. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. All right, so let's start our tour of Java 8. We'll start at the, before I start that, I'll tell you a little bit about the status update of where we are. So we've launched a majority of the big ticket JSRs in Java 1 2014. Okay, so as you can see, quite a few of those. Java 8, CDI2, JSON-B, JMS 2.1, JAX-RS 4, Servlet 4, JAX-RS 2.1, MVC, and JSF 2.3. We've actually released those already. Those expert groups are up and running, but you can still join them. Okay, some of those are now in early draft phase. All right, early draft phase meaning very, very early version of the specification that you can start reading. For example, the one you can read right now is MVC. Okay, and in the next coming months, you'll see early drafts of all of these come out that you can look at and give your feedback. Some newer JSRs, these were launched sometime around early this year, okay, January, February timeframe. These are the Java EE security JSRs, the management JSR, and JSON P 1.1. Again, these are already up and running, okay, the expert groups are formed, but you can still join, you can still give your input, you can still be involved. And there's going to be a few more still to come. Majority of the ones that are still to come are going to be point releases. Okay, so it's going to be like those point release features that we added in Java E7. So these are things like the concurrency utilities API, the WebSocket API, minor release of JPA, and the like. All right? Moving forward. Okay, so now let's start our tour of Java 8. And the best place to start is actually Servlet 4. The principal goal of Servlet 4 is going to be adding support for HTTP 2.0. How many, I hope at least some of you are familiar with HTTP 2.0 already. It's basically a rewrite, a complete upgrade of the HTTP specification, the most important specification that you and I work with, okay, as server-side Java developers. Well, guess what? That's actually being completely upgraded, okay, to a new version. I'll talk in a second what that is, but before I do that, let me remind you that there is actually an HTTP 2.0 talk being given at this conference. If you haven't, if you want to learn more about it, I won't be able to cover it in great detail. I'll give you a very high-level overview. You should, I highly recommend you attend that HTTP 2.0 session. It's the biggest thing that will impact you in the next coming years. Okay, so let's talk about what is HTTP 2.0. In order to understand what HTTP 2.0 is, you'll need to understand a little bit of history. You'll need to, firstly, you'll need to understand where is HTTP 1 coming from. HTTP 1.1 is a very, very old API. All right. In fact, when it was created was in the time frame when something called NSCA Mosaic was still a reality. I was the one of the people that used NSCA Mosaic. The internet of that age looked very different, okay, from the way the internet looks like today. How was that internet? How did that internet look like? That internet looked a lot like Wikipedia pages. Okay, so very simple pages, just HTML5 markup, few images here and there, maybe not that many images at all, and hyperlinks. So pretty much text and hyperlinks. Okay, that was the semantic idea of HTTP 1.1. That is what the designers had in mind. However, the reality is the web of today looks very, very different. If you load up the average page, how does that look like? Well, it's far more than just your initial textual page with some HTML in it. That page will have CSS, JavaScript, images, media, so on. In fact, the average page today at least has 10 or 15 dependencies. And that is really not what HTTP 1.1 had in mind at all. So as a result, what the HTTP protocol does today is basically load up the page, okay, and create a connection for loading up the page, close that connection, and there we have the page. Well, guess what? That page isn't enough. Now you have to make those 10 other connections, 10 other open and close calls, okay, to the same server, by the way, most of the time, to get all of the rest of the resources before this page is any good. All right? So as a result of this impedance mismatch, just like you have an object relational impedance mismatch, we have an impedance mismatch between HTTP 1.1 and the reality of the web today. As a result of this impedance mismatch, believe it or not, depending on who you believe, the web is between something between 5 and 10 times slower than what it should be. All right? So HTTP 2.0 is a solution to those problems. So how does it go about solving those problems? So the way it does that is that it assumes the web of today. Right? The biggest difference is that all of those dependent resources, instead of creating separate connections for them, separate calls to the server, well, all of those dependent resources are actually loaded up on the same initial connection. All right? So you get a request for a web resource, and you don't just assume it's just a one textual resource. You assume there's going to be many resources that the server is going to send down for you. Okay, and you're going to do all of that resource loading in one go, in one connection call. You don't create separate connections. The way this works is that we turn this entire initial connection into a set of streams. Very old technique, actually. Very old TCP-based techniques. And each of these streams even has things like priorities. So you can say, okay, to load this particular page, I really need these 5 resources, and these 5 I can load later. Okay, so and that is further optimization. Okay, further optimize that call. You can optimize even other things. So often these separate resources do not need separate headers. You can go by reusing some of the same headers. And that, again, reduces the round trips between the server and the client significantly. So again, think about that for a second. So from HTTP 1.1, just by upgrading the protocol to a smarter protocol for today, we're suddenly seeing the entire web, okay, speed up by 2 or 3 or 5 times. All right, it's a very big deal. So what do we plan to do about this in Servlet 4? Well, the good news for you is that we are trying to minimize the set of changes that are going to break your application. Okay, so a large majority of these changes hopefully can be done at the implementation level, not the API level. What that means for you is that when you upgrade your application server from Java E7 to Java E8, your existing servlet applications will not break. Okay, they will just automatically take advantage of these new features that are being offered. However, the reality is we won't be able to do that full scale. Okay, there will need to be some API changes that we will need to do. All right, but the idea is those API changes are opt-in. All right, you can opt into those features. It gets even better. The news gets even better if you look at technologies that build upon servlets, which is what most people are doing today. Hardly any one of you are probably just writing plain servlets. Okay, at that level, you can almost make all of these HTTP2 stuff disappear. Okay, so if you're dealing with JAX-RS or JSF or maybe the MVC API that we're working on, a lot of those frameworks will take advantage of these changes in Servlet and HTTP 2.0 without any API changes that surface up to you altogether. Okay, so that is even better news for you. All right. Moving forward. JSON-B. This has to do with making JSON a first-class citizen in Java EE. Okay, so JSON, for very, very good reasons, is now becoming the de facto data serialization format of the web. Whatever you're doing, whether it's a mobile application or even like a microservice-based application that one machine is talking to the other, by and large, the serialization format that you're using is JSON, probably over REST or over WebSocket. So we want to make sure that JSON is as easy to use as possible in the Java EE platform. Okay, you don't even worry about it. You treat JSON as if it's a native Java serialization format. And one of the big part of it is this API called JSON API, Java API for JSON binding. This will make that dream a reality. All right. So what is it? It's basically the same as JAX-B, the Java API for XML binding for JSON. In fact, it's better than that. So in JAX-B, you still need to add annotations to serialize something to XML. In this world, what we will try to do is make the defaulting such that you don't even need to do that. So you'll need to add annotations to a POJO to serialize it to XML only by exception. All right, so even only in cases where you need to rename a Java field. Okay, so you'll add something like JSON property. You'll need to add a default value. Okay, you'll do that via JSON value. You'll say, okay, don't serialize this Java field. Will you add XML transient? Other than that, pretty much everything should work as is. Okay, so you'll just create your POJO. Let's say it's a JPA entity like this. You set it up just the way. Okay, and then automatically, whenever it is needed, let's say you're passing this object back through a JAX-RS resource. Okay, as it's a return parameter of a JAX-RS resource. Well, guess what? The JAX-B will kick in for you, or rather, sorry, JSON-B will automatically kick in for you. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to know anything for this to just get and automatically get a sensible representation of that POJO object. A lot of this work actually we've done in GlassFish already. Okay, so GlassFish has a project called Moxie. Okay, we have built-in support for this already. Largely, this work will be based on Moxie, but we'll learn from all of the best of the breed JSON parser out there that are out there already. Okay, so we'll learn from JSON or JAX-RS or what have you, and come up with the best of breed, the best API that we can imagine today. Okay. Beside the JSON B API, we also have a lower level parsing API. We added this API in Java 7. In fact, the higher level JSON B API uses a JSON P API under the hood. Okay, it uses the basic capabilities that are in there. And as of Java 7 today, you can use this because again, it's built baked into the platform. It's just there for you to use. In Java 8, what we are planning to do is upgrade that API a little bit. Okay, principally this has to do with the fact that thankfully the JSON standards are also moving forward. Okay, so at the lower level parsing API, we want to consume those changes, consume those innovations that are happening in the standard space. Namely two big ones, JSON Pointer and JSON Patch. Actually, there's another one called JSON Patch Merge. Okay, and we'll add support for all of those things in JSON P 1.1 and add that in Java 8 as well. So for those of you who are not familiar with these things, let's take a look at what they are. This is JSON Patch, JSON Pointer. What is it? Well, it's very much like XPath. Okay, XPath for JSON, or if you want to think about it in even simpler ways, URLs, okay, for referencing data elements in JSON. Okay, I have a very simple example here, but it could be much more complicated. For example, in this path, you could have wildcards. Okay, JSON Pointer has support for all that. You can have selectors, sort of. Okay, so for those of you who are familiar with jQuery, so obviously we'll support this, at the low level API level, and perhaps even at the JSON binding API level, we'll make use of these features. One of the most significant ways we can do that is this thing called JSON Patch. What is it? Well, it'll be easy for you to understand if you know what HTTP patch is. It's very similar to that. So it's basically a way of performing CRUD operations on a JSON object. Okay, so how do you describe these CRUD operations? Well, conveniently enough, the CRUD operations themselves are also nothing but a JSON document. So I have an example of it here. So here's two operations that I have examples of. Okay, one is a replace operation, and the other is a remove operation. Okay, so it'll have values like path and value and the like. Okay, so in the first example, I'm saying, hey, please replace this value at the first element in the phones array and in the mobile attribute. Okay, change that to this value. In the second case, I'm saying, okay, please remove the second element of the array that I have. All right. So similar to this, there's a bunch of operations actually in JSON Patch. So some of these operations are things like add, replace, remove, the basic CRUD operations, move, okay, so move one element to the other, copy, test, okay, to see if something is true or false, and the like. And as you can see, this is a very, very low-level capability. It gets much more interesting when you begin to use this JSON patch capabilities in higher-level APIs, like through JAX-RS, for example, through a REST API. Okay, so this gives us a fundamental building block of doing those interesting things, and even actually applying some of these things even at the JSON binding level. Okay, moving forward. ServerSide Events. Hopefully, some of you may have heard of this. I can barely see you, so do me a favor. How many of you have heard of WebSocket? Know a fair deal about WebSocket already? Okay, good. Okay, about 50% of the room. Okay, better than I expected. Okay, so in order to understand what SSE is all about, you'll sort of have to know a little bit about what WebSocket is. Okay, you already know what a plain HTTP is, right? Plain HTTP is just fire and forget. It's a request response protocol. In order to get something, you make a request to the server sends you a response back. Okay, we all know what that's all about. REST is a good example of it. Okay, all of your REST requests, those are all single-shot deals. Okay, you make one request, you get one response. WebSocket is the complete opposite. Okay, so in WebSocket you have not a unidirectional connection, but a bidirectional connection. Okay, you open up a connection between the client and the server, and either the client or the server can make request and response. Okay, in a crazy old bidirectional asynchronous fashion. Okay, when is this WebSocket thing useful? Well, it's useful in things like online multiplayer games. Okay, chat type applications, real-time interactive applications and the like. Okay, now between these two extremes, one-time fire and forget, full duplex, bidirectional asynchronous communication, is another case called server-sent events. Well, what is this case? Well, this is a case where you still have a unidirectional communication, and you still have the server responding to requests from the client, but what happens is it's not just one response. Okay, it's actually multiple unit responses over a period of time. It's a stream. So what are some examples of this? A good example of this is actually so-called stock ticker applications. Okay, so you say you connect up to a server and say, hey server, please take these three stock tickers, stock codes. Oracle's one is ORCL. Okay, Sun used to be Java, JAVA. And you tell the server, hey, whenever you have a change to this stock, please notify me about it. Okay, so you get a stream of notifications over a period of time from the server. Okay, so that's a little bit different from plain old HTTP, and it's not quite WebSocket either. It's this thing called SSE, or server sent events. Okay, server sent events actually are finalized already. They were part of the HTML5 body of standards. We actually already have support for SSE right in GlassFish. Okay, so Jersey has long had support for server-sent events. We debated in Java 7 whether or not we should add SSE support as a part of the standard. So we actually put this question in the survey, and we asked people, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think we need standard support for SSE in the platform? Well, actually, this was one of the most popular items. So clearly, people are interested, at least people that are the type of people that would fill in the Java E8 survey. They are interested in having that sort of functionality that's in Jersey as a standard part of the platform. Okay, so we're going to have a standard API for that now in Java E8. The vehicle for it is going to be JAX-RS, and JAX-RS 2.1 will add this support. I'll show you how the API looks like in a second. To dig into the details of SSE a little bit more, SSE under the hood actually is no different than a long-lived HTTP connection. Okay, the difference is it actually has a specific type of MIME. Okay, the MIME type for it is called text/event stream, and when you do that, basically the browser can create a specific API. It's called event source. Okay, there's a JavaScript standard JavaScript API for it that the browsers already support, and basically what this event source does is it just parses that HTTP stream over a long period of time in a given format, in a well understood format. So how will the API look like for you on the server side? It'll look something like this. So we'll take our stock ticker example, for example. Okay, so over here we have JAX-RS resource. So the path is tickers. We have a GET request. Okay, so all of these SSE things are actually GET requests. Notice that it has a specific MIME type, the MIME type that I talked about, text/event stream. The other thing you will notice now is that the return type for this is not just a POJO. Okay, it's not just one-shot deal to say, hey, here's your response. That's not what it is. Okay, the return type in this case that you get is actually a handle to a stream. All right, so you just get a handle on the initial request, and then what the server expects is that over a period of time you will send it some output. All right. And the way you do that, you'll do that here is you'll create an event output object, return that event output object right away. Okay? And then behind the scenes, populate that event output however you may. Okay? So in this example, I'm using the Java concurrency, Java E7 concurrency utilities to create an executor service, and on the executor service, I'm executing a background thread. In that background thread, I'll somehow figure out, hey, I got a new stock code. So I'm going to take this stock code object, and I'm going to send it down the wire as a unit event. All right, and you can imagine probably the stock code is going to be serialized with JSON. Right? And again, on the server on the client side, you'll parse that JSON. Okay, hopefully using the Java API for JSON binding. All right, moving forward. I'm going to start skipping some things because I want to save time for the last part of this presentation. Okay, in terms of how it is that you can get involved. So I have about 5 more minutes. I'm going to try to breeze through the rest of this. One of the most controversial things, ironically, the thing that's generating the most buzz at the moment is this new standard for MVC. Okay, really, it's a bad name. What it is that it is a action-oriented framework that we're introducing, not as a replacement to JSF, by the way, but as a peer of JSF. So for the first time in Java EE, we are doing the same thing in 2 different ways. We try to avoid doing this. Okay, why did we do this, and why did we do this in 2014 in this day and age? Don't you already have enough action-oriented frameworks? In fact, there is one that works with Java EE quite nicely. It's called VRaptor. It's based on CDI. So in order to understand this question, you need to understand a bit of history. Okay, and you need to understand the basic differences between an action-oriented web framework and a component-based framework like JSF. Anyone remember a gentleman called Craig McClanahan? Oh my goodness, I'm the oldest person in this room. No, I'm joking. Okay, Craig McClanahan is the creator of the original Java framework, struts. All right. So believe it or not, the same gentleman, Craig McClanahan, after he succeeded with struts, was the initial sort of spiritual architect, the person behind the initial design of JSF. So same guy that created this action-oriented framework, creating this new standard. Okay. For those of you who understand MVC, in reality, these action-oriented frameworks are not MVC. They are a bastardization of MVC that kind of works in the web world. All right. So in order to get to true MVC, the MVC that is in the form of Smalltalk, you need to create higher level abstractions, okay, such that the entire controller portion is taken away from you, okay, and all that you as a developer is left with is a view and the model, okay, and the translation, the linkage between the view and the model is actually done by the controller, and the controller is part of the infrastructure. This is how things worked in the original definition of MVC. And in fact, this is how things work in JSF as well. Okay, if you look at JSF today, it fits perfectly the model that's envisioned for true MVC frameworks. However, if you look back at history, even then, Craig had a set of people that disagreed with him. They said, "Oh, this is just not going to work. This is crazy stuff. What are you thinking? You can't make this work in the web world." Well, in my opinion, you can make it work. That's why we have component-oriented frameworks today, like JSF, that have a strong ecosystem behind them and millions of people around the world using it successfully. That is proof that it works. However, ever since Craig and the split from struts and JSF, we've had this debate raging on and on and on. And every few months in the JSF spec, somebody comes in and says, "Oh, JSF sucks. I really want an action-oriented framework," so on. So we took the opportunity of the survey to actually, believe it or not, to try to put this debate to rest. What we were hoping is that people will tell us, "No, you don't need an action-oriented framework. We have JSF in Java EE already. Let's just use that and forget it." All right. Well, guess what? To our surprise, okay, just about more than 60%, a little over 60% developers of the survey actually said, "Yeah, you do want we do want an alternative to JSF." Okay? We don't want to remove JSF, we just want another way of writing web applications, and that is why we're actually doing this work now. All right. So how does it look like? Well, the good news is where we are at the stage of the Java EE lifecycle, a lot of this work is actually done by the respective specs already. So if you look today, this is how an MVC framework would actually look. So the model is by and large already created. Okay, we have all the necessary things to create the model with. So CDI, bean validation, JPA, all of these things are nice ways of creating models. You also have the view. We also have the view in place already. So we have a successful view called Facelets and a very old one called JSP that also works. Okay, so we have that piece already. So the only piece that is really left is defining the controller portion. Okay, the part that JSF does automatically, now you have to write it by hand. And believe it or not, a lot of that work also is done because JAX-RS fits the bill quite nicely in terms of how you go about defining a controller. Okay, so pretty much we're almost there already. Okay, all we need to do is take these distinct pieces of the Java EE platform and put them together in a new way. So how does it look like? It looks something like this. Okay, so here is a simple example. In this example, we're just putting a index page with a set of items. Okay, so all of these, as you can see, is pretty much borrowed from JAX-RS. Okay, the PaaS annotation already exists in JAX-RS. The get annotation already exists in JAX-RS. We just need something actually very small called view. Okay, so all this is doing is saying, okay, when this get method returns, please take the results of this thing into this, in this case, an XHTML page. Okay, it's a bit more than that. I'm being very simplistic here. So we can obviously you can do much more complicated things like handle query parameters, path parameters, headers, have different life cycles for your model. You know, do binding. Data bindings in different ways and so on. And all of that is actually supported by the MVC spec already. If you haven't taken a look at it, do take a look at the early draft. It is out there already, as I mentioned. And in fact, the other nice thing about the reference implementation, its name is Ozark, is that it actually supports far more views than just facelets and JSP. That's what the standard requires as a bare minimum. Beyond that, you actually have a whole bunch of others. So velocity, free marker, mustache. I think somebody even created some JavaFX view handlers for this as well. So it's kind of interesting and an interesting project to get involved in if you're looking to get involved in a project. Okay, now I'm going to skip over the rest of this. So I won't talk about Java EE security. I won't talk about JMS 2.1. You can take a look at this yourself. I'm not going to talk about CDI 2.0, not going to talk about Java EE management, not going to talk about Java EE 8 per se. Okay? Again, a lot of this is relatively self-explanatory. You can take a look at it. Okay? Read the slide notes, download it from slideshare.net. If you have any questions, okay, come back and send me an email and I'll explain it to you if you need to. The reason I want to skip forward is because I want to talk about this. Actually, I want to talk about this for a few seconds, and then I'll talk about what I want to really talk about with you today. Okay, so here is what the timeline for Java EE 8 looks like. All right, I have a bit of bad news to share with you. Originally, we wanted to release Java EE 8 in around Java 1 timeframe. That's around October. Okay, October of 2016. That was that is when we wanted to release. The reality, though, is what is happening is a lot of our engineers are very, very busy working on WebLogic 12.2.1. Okay, in other words, getting Java EE 7 commercial version out to developers and a lot of other work. Okay, on WebLogic. So, what we realized is we are at least 3 to 6 months behind. All right, actually not at least. We're between 3 and 6 months behind. So we pushed out the date for Java 8. Java 8 is now due to be released at the first quarter. Okay, so early part of 2017. Okay? What this means, okay, to you is I hope this is at least a good news in a way. All right? So if you haven't gotten involved in Java 8, do that now. All right? This is your time to do that. We really mean it. We need your help in order to make that dream a reality, to make Java 8 really a very, very community-friendly and community-driven effort. All right? So this brings us to the next part of the presentation, and that is adopt a JSR. Let me talk to you about this a little bit. It has long been possible to contribute to the JCP. It's long been possible to contribute to Java EE. I've been doing that personally for almost 8 years. Okay, I was an observer in Java EE 5. I was an expert group member, meaning I signed up as an expert in 3 specifications in Java EE 6. 2 specifications. No, 3, in fact. Those are CDI 1.0, EJB 3.1, okay, and Java EE 6, which is a platform specification. And it's not just me. Okay, if you look at people like Adam, Antonio, we've all been contributing individually, okay, to all of these specs, and it's not, there's at least 10 or 15 people or more that do this on an individual basis. These are not companies, these are just developers like you. So you can sign up as an individual expert to any of the Java EE APIs. Same applies for Java EE 8. Okay, any of you can decide to do that, to decide to donate your time to help define what these APIs are. However, if that isn't good enough for you, if you think you don't have enough time for that, we've made it even easier. Okay, so we introduced this thing called Adopt a JSR. Okay, we launched it in the Java EE 7 timeframe. And what is this? Well, if you don't want to contribute as an individual, you can contribute through your Java user group as a group. Okay, so you can do very small things. You don't have to constantly be involved in defining the specifications. You can do little things like give your input on a specific question. Okay, read a version of the early draft and provide your feedback. Take a look at the high-level description of the JSR and give your feedback as a group. Okay, through your Java user group. Try out the specifications and see if things are working the way you expect. In fact, we had at 2021, okay, Java user groups contributing to Java EE 7 this way. Okay, we are hoping that this is going to be the principal vehicle, okay, for developers like you, okay, to get involved in Java EE 8. And the way you find out more about this is very, very simple. It's glassfish.org/adoptajsr. Okay? If you want to find out anything more about this, I will be talking more about this. Okay? So I have a quickie, I believe, tomorrow. If you want to come to that, it's about 15 minutes. I'll give you the more details around adoptajsr and what it is and how you can get involved. On the same day tomorrow, on the same date tomorrow, I'll have a BOF. If you want to learn more about the internals of the JCP itself, okay, so I give you a very brief glimpse of how the JCP looks like. If you want to learn more about that, I'll be doing that in the BOF. I'll be explaining to you in every single detail what is this JCP thing and how is it that you can get involved. I really hope, okay, that this is a brand new day for you, that you'll take this seriously, okay, this part seriously. Take a look at my slide deck, take a look at the things that you think interest you, and get involved. Okay, help us define what Java EE 8 should really look like. In fact, this is not just a pipe dream. Okay, so we already have a few jugs signed up, okay, and serious about various Java EE 8 specifications, and we hope to grow this. At the end of the day, we really hope that when we are done with Java EE 8, almost every single major Java user group in the world at least has adopted at least has done one thing to help define what this platform is about. This is very unique. This is a unique value of what Java is all about. At the end of the day, if you're a Java developer, this is what you should be proud about. Okay, this is a very democratic and open process in helping you define your own future. Okay, If you want to learn a bit more, other than the adopted JSR page, okay, that's very simple. glassfish.org/adopted JSR. These are the resources for you. Okay, so you can learn anything about platform specification and dig in and deeper into each of these specifications by just going to the top level Java EE URL, okay? And that's javaespec.java.net. And of course, you can get to all of this from glassfish.org. And if you want to stay up to date, if you want to know more about Java EE, generally, the best way to stay up to date is the Aquarium blog. It's I and a colleague of mine, his name is David Delabasi. We work very hard, okay, to blog at least once a day on something about Java EE ecosystem, Java E7, Java E8. Okay, so this is a good way for you to be involved. If you are a Twitter user, okay, the corresponding Twitter handle is GlassFish. Okay, so everything that we put out on the Aquarium blog, we also echo back in the GlassFish Twitter stream and more. Okay, it's another way for you to get involved and stay engaged with us. Okay, so I have 5 more minutes. I will take any questions that you may have. If you don't have any more questions, I'm going to take this 5 minutes to go back and cover a little bit more ground about what Java E8 is. I'm very excited. I'm excited about the fact that I have so much to talk about that I can't even cover it in 1 hour. Yes, sir.
Can you go to the Java security?
Java E security, yes, we can do that. Okay, do you have a specific question?
Well, it's, I think, first major thing in Java is security for years, so kind of the whole topic is interesting for me.
Good. Yeah, so the basic idea here is to do 2 things. Simplify Java security as much as possible, and also to make it more portable. So let me give you a little bit of background. I have about 2 minutes. Let me get back to that in a second. Let's see if anybody else has any other questions. Otherwise, I'll cover Java security in the few minutes that I have. Yes, sir.
What about JSON schema and Java EE? Will you support it?
Say that again?
JSON schema.
JSON schema. Yes. So as long as it is matured enough, okay, we'll support it. I don't think it's quite mature enough quite yet, but that's a good question and a good thing to explore in either the JSON B or JSON P expert group. Okay, ask the question there. Right. Okay. Any other questions? No? Moving on? All right, perfect. Let's move on to Java security. Okay, so if you ask the average newbie Java developer, a Java E developer, somebody that really hasn't developed a production Java E application, what they'll tell you is, oh, Java E doesn't have any security features. Okay, this is not quite true. Let me explain to you how the Java E security model works like today, and explain to you why it is the way it is. So the way Java E security works today is that it has 3 distinct components. One component is the Java EE application. Okay, and what the Java EE application does is that it describes its security requirements. It says, please secure this application using basic auth. Please secure these URLs, or these EJBs or these resources, and please only allow these roles, okay, to access these resources. That's one component. The other component is the application server itself. Okay, so that is where you do actually a majority of the work in securing a Java EE application. That is where you say, hey, please take this application and secure it against the roles and the authorization data stored in this database or in this LDAP server. And by and large, application servers have very, very rich infrastructure to do that. If you go onto the console of WebLogic or WebSphere or GlassFish, it has an entire security section. And you do these things by point and click. Okay, you don't write any code to do that. The reason that is because that, one, is a lot simpler than writing code, and more importantly, that role is not geared towards developers. Okay, the idea here is that the developer says, this is my security requirements. Please deploy this jar or var or year file, and then somebody else, either an architect or ideally, a system admin does all that other stuff. Because think about it, these are things like, what secure database am I connecting to? The username, password of those security URLs. How to take each of these user roles and map how these roles map to this application. These are all highly secure tasks. Okay, that is the reason Java 8 security is the way it is. Is a lot of the actual work is done at the application server level. The other component is something called JAX, and what that allows is that it gives an arbitrary system integrator, let's say things like SiteMinder, a way to say, here's my security security module. Okay, go install this in your app server, and this is how you go about doing a point-and-click interface to secure your application against SiteMinder. Okay. Now, the big problem with that is that all of those things, number one, are not at the developer level. Two, are also non-portable. Okay, so it's all of those things are done differently on each application server. Okay, so in Java 7, we're looking to do this and add another option to allow developers to do these things. All right, so how do you do that? It's very simple. Okay, so just one annotation really. Okay, the one annotation does the job. Okay, you just give one annotation to say, hey, this is where my security information comes from. That's it. If you want anything like JAX, all right, then you will also enable that feature. All right. So today, JAX is for system integrators, not developers. Well, we'll also give you a way so that you can embed, third-party arbitrary authentication providers in your application. Okay, so you just write a POJO with this security provider annotation on it, and that's it. That's all you need to do. You just deploy this. And then you do whatever it is that you need to do here. You just have two hooks, authentication and authorization, and then you do whatever you need to do here. All right, connect up to whatever backend components you want. This has all of the capabilities of a Java EE managed bean. Okay, you can do injection, whatever it is that you need. All right. So that is just the tip of the iceberg. There's actually even more things like a very interesting EL-enabled security annotation and other work. This is actually a very interesting JSR to be involved in. If I had a choice, if I was an independent today, I would definitely be involved in this spec. All right. That is all that I have time for. Thank you very much. I hope you come to one more of my sessions. I have a session in the afternoon. Otherwise, please enjoy DevOps Poland.